Interesting and a great place to start our conversation with Gregory Allen. You've met Gregory before on this program. He is one of the foremost experts on AI in the nation's capital, and in fact, director of the Wadhwani AI Center at CSIS, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, former director of strategy and policy at the Department of Defense Joint Artificial Intelligence Center. This is the guy you need to hear from today. It's great to have you back. I can only imagine your thoughts when you see an AI story explode like this in the mainstream media. I've got a lot of specific answers, questions for you that hopefully you will have answers to. But in terms of Jevons paradox, why does it matter here?
So I think the stock market is looking at DeepSeek and they're saying, oh my gosh, here is a company who has found a way to make pretty high quality AI much more widely available for much cheaper. So therefore, the price performance of a company like OpenAI, how are they going to justify that cost when suddenly it's so cheap to make? And the Jevons paradox has a really important answer to everybody who's out there shorting NVIDIA or shorting Microsoft right now. It basically says that as something becomes cheaper, people want more of it. So Jevons, the observation actually dates back to the Industrial Revolution, where he pointed out that steam engines are getting more and more energy efficient, but we keep using more and more coal. Because as we get more energy efficient, then you can economically justify using coal in an application that you couldn't before. The exact same thing is true in computing. The cost of one flop, one operation of computing, has dropped by, 20 trillion fold since, the 1950s when we first invented computers. But are we using more computers or are we using less computers? Are companies making more money selling computers or less money selling computers? The basic point here is that Microsoft is, thank goodness AI is so cheap, because now the universe of people who are going to want to buy it from me just grew a lot.
Fascinating. What does this mean for the energy companies, by the way? It's not just the NVIDIAs that are down. It's the Constellations and the others that we've been talking so much about. Clean, renewable. Is it going to be nuclear? Will we still need expensive energy if Jevons correct?
Well, it's the exact same phenomenon.
Decline in price as well?
No, it's the exact same phenomenon, just applied to the energy. If you go back 10 years, how much was data centers as a share of the U.S. electrical grid demand? It was hardly anything. But at the exact same time that computer chips got more powerful, that algorithms got more efficient, suddenly data centers are actually a pretty reasonable chunk of the U.S. grid. And now it's looking like they're going to consume a lot more. Well, increasing efficiency has already been a part of that story. An NVIDIA chip today is literally 10,000 times more efficient than an NVIDIA chip a decade or two ago. And at the same time that they're getting more efficient, at the same time that you're using less energy per unit of computation, you're making the economic and the business case that much more attractive for every additional use case for that competition.
I have to admit, this all sounds pretty positive in the grand scheme. So let's get to this case specifically and why Wall Street is so freaked out. DeepSeek, we're told this happened with $6 million in funding. Is that possible? Is that true?
So it's which part of the story you want to say.
Okay.
This specific model training run, right? When you're training an AI model, how much computation did you use on that one run? Yes, that was $6 million worth of computation. But there's all the other model training runs that didn't work. Right? When DeepSeek says that's what it costs, that didn't say their entire computing costs for all of their research and development, for all the work that went into creating this model was $6 million. They said this one individual training run was $6 million. Another thing to note here is, part of the reason why everybody's so excited is this is a model that has reasoning capabilities. This is the advance that OpenAI came out with in the O1 series of models in September of last year. Well, it turns out what DeepSeek has proved is that upgrading a pretty decent base model, think like GPT-4, to a reasoning model, that is actually not as computationally intensive as had been understood widely in the press. But inside the big AI companies, OpenAI, Anthropic, they already knew all of this. They were already benefiting from all of this. Recall that Sam Altman said that O3, the most advanced category of model, the one that was blowing away benchmarks in December of 2024, he said the price of giving away that model usage, free. Right? So costs are coming down for everyone, not just for DeepSeek. What DeepSeek is doing is replicating a series of research that American AI companies had already been benefiting from. They just weren't sharing it loudly and publicly.
Okay. Did this company get its hands on NVIDIA chips? Or did it reinvent the wheel with some kind of popcorn chip that it stacked in a way that we've never seen before?
So according to this company, according to DeepSeek, they used NVIDIA chips.
All right.
But they specifically used NVIDIA H800 chips. So folks who watch the export controls debate in Washington, export control policy in Washington closely, such as myself,
Yeah.
you may remember that in October 2022, that's when the Biden administration launched this AI chip restrictions, export controls strategy. But they got the performance thresholds wrong. They thought that they were saying, oh, you have to buy 2 generations old of NVIDIA chips. But what NVIDIA found out is actually if we make this one tweak to our existing best-in-class chips, they're actually legal to sell. So there was whereas the Biden administration was under the impression that they were putting China under like a 50 or 60% performance penalty, actually they were only imposing like a 10% performance penalty. And there was an entire year between October 2022 and October 2023 when it was illegal to sell unlimited numbers of these H800 chips.
So this is the whole story.
This is
what we need
the
to talk
story.
about.
They have been export controls have a lagging effect, right? It's not like you stop selling it and everything that's already in China magically blows up, right? They still have what they already bought. And in this case, we are dealing with the failure of the design of the export control architecture of October 2022. Later this year, we're going to start living through the success story of the October 23 architecture, the December 2024 architecture, and it came out of the mouth of DeepSeek's CEO. He said, the #1 challenge my company faces is U.S. export controls, right? When Biden and Xi Jinping meet to discuss foreign policy issues, time and again, I've heard this from Biden administration officials, time and again, Xi Jinping changes the topic back to these export controls and why he needs them to go away immediately. He's not asking to get rid of them because they aren't working. He's asking to get rid of them because they are working, because they are imposing significant costs. Now, I don't want to suggest that there's no legitimate technical innovation underpinning this new DeepSeek model release. There's some legitimately impressive stuff in here. Folks who work at American AI Labs are reading these papers. They are seeing innovations they can use. But think about what advantages America can secure that are durable and hard to replicate, and what advantages China can secure that are durable and hard to replicate. All of the algorithmic innovation, all of the architectural innovation that is represented in this DeepSeek model, 100% of it is available to American AI companies. They get to copy any new innovation. By contrast, all the computational advantages that American companies have, Chinese companies can't copy that because they can't make the chips.
Fascinating. So I'm listening to you, and I'm amazed by everything you're telling me, and I'm wondering why all these stocks are down today.
Well,
you're making the case to buy NVIDIA.
Well, I would say in the long term, the stock market is based on truth.
Sure.
But in the short term, sometimes it's based on vibes.
So
and the
somebody's gonna make
vibes
a
have
lot
been
of
pretty
money
bad.
today is what's going on.
That would be my strong impression.
I mean, this isn't Blackwell we're talking about. It's not Rubin we're talking about.
Right, we're talking about DeepSeek, and it's legitimately important, right? This is an update in what people think is possible, but it's an update that folks who have been living in the AI industry are familiar with, right? Right now, we're living in the world of GPT-4 as the base model, O1 as the sort of reasoning model updates. But I remember when GPT-2 came out, and it was trained on a supercomputer, and now it runs on my laptop. And I remember when GPT-3 came out, and it was trained on a supercomputer, and now it runs on my laptop. So the point is here, there's no real update in paradigm. Computers start in supercomputers and they end up in personal devices, and that has been the trend literally since Alan Turing invented the first computer during World War II.
Yeah.
It gets faster, smaller, cheaper. But at the same time, you have to ask yourself, what kind of durable competitive advantages can we create? And I think it's worth pointing out that we are on the cusp of a threshold, right? Sam Altman himself early last year said that the performance of his model was, quote, mildly embarrassing at best. And he had the best one in the world. But the point is, we are maybe a year away, maybe a handful of years away, from AI models being able to perform so many different tasks in the global economy. And in some cases, being able to do so at better than world expert levels. So we are approaching this threshold when AI will go from